Hello, everybody. I hope you're all having a happy Friday. Um, sure, I can't believe this week has passed and it's weekend again. Okay, so my name is Michelle Sipker, and I'm a psychic channel, and an integration coach and a healer. And basically, I offer two services. I offer a psychic channeling sessions, and I offer a Magic Phoenix session. And a Magic Phoenix session includes everything I do. It includes coaching, it includes channeling, it includes um, healing, and includes compassion key. It basically depends on what it is you need in the moment. And I come on here on YouTube uh, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to share with my community, to share with humanity, whether it is channeling on Monday nights. Um, I want to say meditations, but it's changing more into live transmissions. We've been doing remote viewing, meditation, healing, downloads, all of that happens on a Wednesday. And then on Fridays, I do some coaching on specific topics. And today's topic is speaking your truth. This is certainly something I've had a lot of experience with in my life. I did not get to this place where I'm speaking my truth currently easily. It was a long, hard road for me. And if you are in a position where you are struggling to speak your truth, um, I can relate, I understand, I know how to hold space for you, I know how to get there. And it's not always an easy road. So, yes. Um, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. It might give you a little bit of an idea. So I grew up in a household, uh, a fairly narrow-minded religious household. And I also experienced a liberal side. So I experienced life with my mom and experienced life with my grandparents. My grandparents, very sort of rigid, traditional religious, not very spiritual kind of lifestyle. But there were positives too. And on my mom's side, really, really dealing with all of her woundedness. She had her positive sides too, but I'm talking about the negative aspects because these are the things that impacted me not speaking my truth. So why is it that we can't speak our truth? Why do we have so much trouble with it? There's several reasons, and some of them may be obvious to you, and some of them may be less obvious to you. When you are in your journey, please feel free to comment and share with me your experiences or questions that you may have. But wherever you are on your journey, um, it's important to have grace for yourself, have compassion for yourself, and understand that every single win, doesn't matter how small it is a huge victory in the journey of speaking your truth. Okay, so whenever I spoke what I considered to be my truth, as a child, as a teenager, um, there was something that would happen that would later on cause me to either be quiet about my truth or to try to be someone else. If this sounds like you, keep listening. Okay. So, why don't we speak our truth? It usually comes down to conditioning and programming. And most of what we experience is going to come from our childhood. It could be from any traumatic events that happened or series of traumatic events. It could even be that you didn't come from an extremely traumatic family, but the culture that you're in, the society that you live in, the country you live in, or just the way your family does things could all be factors that impact you being truthful with yourself and speaking about that. Because that's truly what it is to speak your truth. It's about accepting yourself for who you are, being comfortable with it, and telling people. That's what speaking your truth is about. It's about being your authentic self and being comfortable in your own skin. Um, and I think this is something a lot of people in society struggle with for various reasons. And if we look at the bigger picture of our society, um, whether it's Western, Eastern, every single culture or society has some aspect of um, societal norms that shape people to not speak their truth. Now, I'm not saying that this is true for every single person, and there's all kinds of levels of this. It is seen in every minority group, right up to privileged people. So there is no class or culture distinction here. It is something that happens to everyone on some level. And even whether you're looking at someone who comes from some sort of rigid religious background, like I did, or whether you're looking at someone who's absolutely spoilt and had everything they ever desired, there's going to be some conditioning there that's going to prevent the person from saying who they truly are. Okay, so how do we deal with this conditioning, whether it's society, cultural, household, wherever that conditioning, trauma, wherever that conditioning came from? Okay, so first of all, it's to start looking inward within yourself as an individual. How did that trauma come about for you, or how did that conditioning come about for you? So, in becoming aware of yourself, that whenever you find yourself wanting to speak your truth, what happens? Pay attention to the thoughts that you're thinking, pay attention to the emotions, pay attention to the sensations in your body. In whichever way you pick up information, whichever way your being is telling you that something is out of alignment. And we all have our different languages that we speak. And I'm speaking here about spiritual languages, bodies, emotional, mental, whatever it is. Is it your thinking? You know, whatever it is, become aware because that's the first step. If you're not aware of what happens to you, why you may be shut down or why you act in a way that's not truly you, then you have to ask yourself, why is it happening? What's going on? And then you can start getting to the root of it. Once you're aware of the feelings and emotions and thoughts that are going on, then you can start working with it. Or if it's a discomfort in your body, maybe you have a flashback. There's so many different ways in which there is some information coming through that will tell you where it's coming from. There's quite a number of ways you can deal with it, okay, once you know what it is. But the next step is really to start pinpointing what underlying emotion is underneath all of this. And sometimes it's underlying thoughts. But most of the time, you're going to find that there's some underlying emotion. And usually it comes from some place of fear, right? Let me know if you've experienced this and what types of fear perhaps is associated with it. Because there's all kinds of different fear. It could be fear of not fitting in. It could be fear of being judged. It could be fear of not being good enough. It could be fear of being an outsider or being different. Um, it could be fear, and if we narrow it down to society, there's for a lot of people there's an underlying fear of being cast out of the group or cast out of society, because back in the day, a long time ago, if people were not working with their community, they would often be cast out. This is not always the case, and it's not part of every single ancient group or culture, but this is certainly something that is quite embedded in all of us, right? Some form of that. And it doesn't matter which part of history you look at, Doesn't matter which culture you look at, there will be some variation of that. Either ostracized, banned, punished in some way, there'll be some version of it. Or whether we're just looking at your current life. So this is what it boils down to. It could be from your current life, as in when you were a child, your current, the culture you grew up in, all of that, but it could also be a past life experience, which means that's sitting there within your karmic field. And if it's in your karmic field, if it's from other lifetimes, it could be multiple lifetimes. This could play out over and over again. And if you notice it as a pattern in your life, whether it's from conditioning from this lifetime, another lifetime, or multiple lifetimes, chances are, if it's a pattern, it's not just this lifetime that it's happened before. Then it's important to remove those blockages, okay, in whichever way you find the most comfortable. There's more than one way to remove a karmic blockage or to remove blockages at the soul level. One of the ways in which I prefer doing this, I became a certified compassion key practitioner in July this year, 2022. Compassion key has changed my life. I will be forever grateful to Edward Mannix for just coming across my path, and for me, and I'll be ever thankful to myself for enrolling in his course, because it has brought me closer to alignment with myself, and it has taken me to levels of speaking my truth that I never thought would be possible for me. It really has. It's impacted every single part of my life. And if you're interested in compassion key session with me, please have a look at my website. I do that, and I include it in my Magic Phoenix session. That aside, there are many different ways to deal with these blockages. Many different ways. This is just one way. You could journal about your experiences. You could go for hypnotherapy. You could go for any form of hypnotherapy where with a trusted professional, and you could see someone like me. You could. So let's take the example of writing things down. So if you want to work on this by yourself, all right, and this is not always going to be the best thing. Hi, Tracy, welcome. Sorry, I only saw your message now. So it's not always going to be possible to see a professional, and it's also not always going to be possible to sort it out on your own. Okay, sometimes you just need help, and sometimes a friend can help you, okay? There are many different options on how to deal with this, but it comes down to changing your programming. That's what it truly comes down to, okay? And when we are clearing in the karmic layer, we're clearing that programming at the soul level. We're changing that programming and replace it with something new, replace it with what we want, which is to speak your truth. Okay. So if you want to work on it on your own, you can write down what feelings comes up for you and thoughts, sensations in the body. Make a record of it. Every single time it happens, go and write it in your journal and see what comes up. See if there's a pattern forming. And then there are many different ways. You can use affirmations or affirmations. You can use, sorry, for all of a sudden I got distracted. There are many, many different ways in which you can work on this. And another way to deal with what comes up, whatever comes up in your journaling, or perhaps you're just reflecting, and that's fine, is to also do meditation, to connect with your higher self and let your higher self guide you as to how to clear these blockages, or how to remove the programming, or how to change the programming. Another very, very important tool of changing that programming and clearing that conditioning is to start setting boundaries. Okay. And to really start connecting with your higher self. When you are connecting with your higher self, it's going to be easier to set the boundaries, and it's going to be easier, and little by little, okay, it's small steps, small step at a time, especially if you're doing it all on your own. It's going to take time, okay? So little by little, but every little win is a huge victory. So take it, take whatever victory you can get. Um, and sometimes we're afraid to speak our truth because of being judged. We're being afraid of being judged. And then what happens is we placate. And then we end up doing things we don't want to do. We end up going to events we don't want to attend. And we basically let our energy be drained. So not speaking your truth, not being truthful to yourself, first of all. So this is why it's important to get to know your higher self, to spend time with your higher self. It's because you need to be truthful to yourself. And this is why awareness is key as well. You need to spend time with yourself. You need to get to know who you really are. Because another huge, huge thing that happens when we don't speak our truth and when we're continuously doing it and in that pattern, is we start losing our identities, especially when we are trying to placate others, especially when we are in some kind of toxic cycle where we are hiding ourselves so much that you don't even know who you are anymore. And this causes huge problems for people in their identities. And as you know, with many, many different areas where people experience this on a huge level. So, for example, in the GBDM community or with the neurodiverse community, it often results in depression, anxiety, and high suicide rates. Those two groups have got the highest suicide rates of any other groups, the neurodivergence and the, so those two groups have got the biggest rates of suicide because they're not accepted. So again, that fear of not speaking the truth, that fear of being ostracized for being who you truly are and accepting yourself, it starts with self-love. It starts with conversations with your higher self. It starts with understanding and knowing who you are and being okay with that. And it's a little by little, little by little. If any of you have any questions or experiences you'd like to share in this regard, or have any specific questions that you want to ask regarding speaking your truth, ask. And I'll be happy to answer in the comments or right now on the live if that's what you want to do. In March this year, I wrote a blog post, and the link to that is down below, about shining your light. So what is shining your light about? You can definitely go and read the post, but it boils down to connecting with your higher self. And in that blog post, I go into detail about how to get there. I speak about awareness in there and a few other things as well. So please go check out that post for some more reading information. I've also linked some other links down below, understanding and utilizing mirrors, because mirrors is an important aspect of speaking your truth, because you will have your guidance will often be giving you mirrors. Mirrors are sacred, okay? And what are mirrors? Mirrors are basically when the people around you are reflecting back at you who you are being. The positive side of that is that when you notice other people's divinity, you can recognize your own divinity. The negative side of that is that when they trigger you, push your buttons, and you don't like what they're saying, it's usually because there's something about that you don't like about yourself. It's usually something you don't like about yourself. And then you have to ask yourself, why don't I like that? Okay, that's usually a clue to this whole rabbit hole. So it's very much linked. Mirrors can be a big clue to help you realize that you're not speaking your truth. And that's another aspect of speaking your truth. Some people are so used to placating and playing a role that it's become their identity that they don't even know who they are, and that's part of the identity crisis. But it's, for some people, it's buried so deep that they're not even aware why they're miserable. They're not even aware that they're not being themselves. They're lost. They don't know who they are. Okay. And there are too many people who feel unhappy, but they don't know why. Because maybe they have a lovely house and a lovely family and a lovely car and a lovely, lovely children, but they just don't feel quite happy. And this is usually a huge indication that their identity is hidden. And if you go down that rabbit hole, you'll find that those people are not often going to speak the truth that comes to them, and that their true selves are deeply hidden. So if you recognize that within yourself, then I would like to encourage you to start reflecting, start becoming aware, and start making notes in whichever way works for you on what that means. And another way to deal with this is also to go and see a psychologist or a counselor, someone you can talk to, someone you can trust. And a professional can really, really help you in this regard. We, as a humanity, we want unity, and we want to be able to fit in with each other. But if you can't love yourself, and if you can't find that unconditional love for yourself and accept yourself for who you are, how are you going to connect with everybody else and accept them? And oftentimes, and this is where mirrors come in as well, oftentimes the people that are rejecting that truth that you are speaking, they have the same wounds. This happens so often. Perhaps they've been taught to placate and play a role, okay? Or perhaps they've gone through some trauma, and that's why it's so hard for them to accept. And then we mirror each other and we trigger each other, and then it doesn't work out. So either way, you're going to be unhappy. So unless you face the truth of where it's coming from, what conditioning there is, and unless you seek help or do some deep meditation, deep spiritual work, some shadow work is quite often the answer, you're not going to get to any changes. And of course, setting boundaries. Sometimes saying no to the invitations that you really don't enjoy and don't want to do. Sometimes saying no to the things people are begging you to do, right? It so often happens that people are asking you to do something because, oh, you're such a nice person, that kind of thing. But deep down inside, you're like, yes, I am a nice person, but I don't really enjoy doing this, and I don't really want to do this. And then you give in because you don't want people to think that you're not a nice person. But setting your boundaries doesn't mean you're not a nice person. It means that you love yourself enough to say no. And I will be doing a coaching session on setting boundaries in 2 weeks' time. Next week, I'm going to be speaking about clear audience. So continuing with the different spiritual gifts. So if that sounds at all like you, please give it some thought. And speaking of the gifts, the videos that I'm making about gifts, I've also placed a link down below for the gift of clear empathy. Often also tied in with this, right? We care so much that we sacrifice ourselves. And that can be another cause of not speaking your truth, okay? And hiding who you truly are. And we learn to mask, all right? So many of us learn to mask who we truly are because we think we won't be accepted. But the amazing thing, once you start taking steps in just being yourself and accepting that not everybody is going to vibe with you. And I think this is such a crucial key aspect to get. This is the part in starting to heal yourself from not having an identity and from not speaking your truth, is to start making those small steps towards shining your light and speaking your truth. The small steps where you say, actually, I don't really enjoy Friday nights, blah, 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 whatever it is. Okay, I'm just using a random example, social example, but it's to start taking those small little leaps and to slowly but surely just move forward. Just little things. Just saying no. Just little things where you start being honest with yourself and then act on it, taking action. And it's important to accept that not everybody is going to agree with you. Not everybody's going to be happy when you speak your truth. It's okay to become okay with polarization. The amazing thing that happens from that, some people might leave, but the people who you truly resonate with are going to start coming to the fore more. Let's see what Tracy has to say. I used to do that, placating, and it's exhausting. It is. It's so draining. I didn't know who I was. I'm so grateful for my transforming out of that. There's still a small part of me that wants to pull me back. Yeah, definitely. Baby steps. That's it. Absolutely. And you know what? We'll always have more learning to do, right? There's always going to be, I still sometimes catch myself not speaking my truth. I'm still sometimes scared to take a chance, right? And saying who I truly am. There's less and less of that happening now. So I'm grateful for that. But it's small little incremental steps. People underestimate how big a small step can be. Don't ever underestimate those small little wins and those small little victories. They're gold. They're gold. It's inching your way forward little by little. And eventually you'll get there. And eventually it won't be so uncomfortable to speak your truth anymore. And that's the major thing. Eventually you're not going to care if somebody agrees with you or not. But you're going to have such an amazing time sharing with people who do agree with you or who do vibe with you. I love using this new wording, And it's really about finding your tribe and finding the people who are on your level. Because let's face it, as we are growing, especially in our spirituality, some people are going to be left behind because they don't want to grow. They want to stay where they are. They're too scared to move forward. So if you are moving forward, even if it's just little by little, it's because you were brave enough to take that little step. And that needs to be commended, and you need to be proud of it. And just keep taking those little steps. And I promise you, if you look back at it like a year ago or 2 years ago, you won't believe it's the same person. Okay. Don't take those little steps for granted. Don't take those little victories for granted. They're of gold. And now here I am. So from my own story a little bit about how long ago? 4 years ago now, I was too scared to say that I had psychic abilities. And this is when I decided, okay, I'm accepting within myself that I do actually have these psychic abilities. Like I was suppressing them for most of my life. And I started having flashbacks of me having encounters with other beings when I was a very small child. So, and it all happened because of a healing journey that I was going through. I was at the lowest of my low, and I started accepting with myself, okay, yeah, maybe I've got these gifts, but I was too scared to speak about it, right? So I'm just taking an example from my own life. There's many different examples. But eventually I started telling people I'm an intuitive worker. And there's nothing wrong with that. That wasn't wrong, but that was my first big, brave step. I was too scared to use the word psychic. I was definitely not brave enough to use the word channeling. In fact, I didn't even really know what that was. And if you had told me that I'll be making videos on a regular basis on YouTube, I would have laughed or hidden away, one of the two. So it just shows you, here I am now, because I started taking that small step where, first of all, I admitted to myself Okay, and this is just one aspect of my life that I'm talking about. There's many other ways in which this shows up. And then eventually just owning up to other people that, yes, I do have some abilities. And I wasn't even really comfortable talking about it, but it was that first step. So just keep taking those little steps. And the more you start taking the little steps, the more comfortable you will be with it. It won't be so harsh anymore. Okay, so unless there's any other questions, there's probably so much more to say on this topic and so much more that we can discuss. Please feel free to share it in the comments if you are watching the replay. And, if there's enough questions, I will most definitely make another video about it, and it will be step 2. Okay, or if there's something that you want to talk about in terms of how to set healthy boundaries, because as I said, that's part of speaking your truth, is setting those healthy boundaries. Okay, so I'll be talking about that in 2 weeks' time. So if you have questions about that, put it in there. All right, these two topics are quite closely related. All right, so thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this, please consider making a contribution. There's a PayPal link below for that. If you're interested in a personal coaching session where I help you one-on-one with your specific issues in speaking your truth or anything related, my website link is down below. What's the other thing? I forget the other thing. Oh, yes, the other thing is please like, subscribe, and share this video if it had any value for you. I appreciate it so much. I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And if this video would mean something to someone else, if you feel that this could help someone else, please share it. Okay. Have a great weekend, everybody. Lots of love. And remember to open your hearts and let the love in, especially for yourself. Bye.